In this video, I'm going to show you the functionality of the analysis screen. The options available depend on the options in the top right-hand corner. In this case, we've got all vehicles selected and the page opens on the stats page. You can change the date range. So if I look at last week, you can see that there were 643 journeys made. Vehicles were in use a total of 7% of the time, and a total of just over 5,700 miles were travelled. 78 of those miles were in private mode, so the yellow indicates private and the green indicates business. This graphic here breaks down the idling time, so ignition was on, and again this was for all vehicles. Ignition was on for a total of 187 hours, 151 of those were driving and 35 hours idling. If we come over to the right hand side, this breaks down all the driver behaviour events and averages them over 10 miles to give us a benchmark. The first one is overspeed events, and there are 0. Then you've got harsh acceleration, harsh braking, harsh cornering left, harsh cornering right. A good benchmark is anything 1 or below. Above 1 is a matter of concern, and if you've got 2s and 3s, you've really got to investigate. The second button allows us to compare stats. We're currently looking at all vehicles, but you could compare a group of vehicles with all vehicles so you can see on the event side if anything is above average. The third button gives you a table display of everything that has been shown on the stats page. And you can order this by any value. So if you wanted to see who's done the most miles, we click on the distance and that's ordered by miles they've done. Again, if we want to see who has the most harsh acceleration events, we click there and we can see that this driver here is something to be concerned about, as they're well over 1. And you can see the deceleration events are also well over 1. Okay, that's looking at all vehicles. If we wanted to look at an individual vehicle, we can have a look by simply clicking there. That's a shortcut. Otherwise, we could have selected here and clicked on a vehicle. So this first page, now you can see there's more options. This first page is giving you live position. And you can see the last journey indicated, so ignition was on at 8:37 where they started and where they finished. And that was obviously a short journey as they travelled 0 miles, at an average speed of 1. We can see that journey by clicking on that button, and if we zoom in, it looks like they just drove around a customer site. If we want to see a breakdown of all the journeys, we can click on the journey log. This is looking at today's. If we click yesterday, you can see all the journeys that were made yesterday. On the left hand side, you've got the journey start time. Start time was 05:04, ending at 05:51. So the journey took a total of 47 minutes, and you can see where they started and where they ended. We can pop up a map and see the start and end places. You can see they were actually at this location for 15.5 hours. If we wanted to see the route taken, we could simply click on the map symbol and this shows exactly where they went. On here you can turn off the arrows and just see the events, or similarly, you can turn off events and just see the arrows. You can also click this button for text display of where they've been, and if you click on any of these it will show you the location. If you zoom in, you can see there was a harsh left around the island there. If you hover over the town listed, it will give you the full address of where anything happened. Going back to the journey display, you can scroll back day by day or click on the day. You could also select a date from the drop-down calendar. On the right-hand side, you've got the total journey statistics for the day and fuel statistics. This is calculated using manually entered miles per gallon. We keep an up-to-date record of average fuel costs, and that gives you an approximate cost per day. It gives you ignition on time, idling time, and first ignition on to last ignition off, and here you have the time in between. You can see the stats for an individual journey if we click on the paragraph symbol there, and that will tell you 37.8 miles, average speed, highest speed, etc. This is the stats which I've explained previously, but this again is on an individual vehicle. This is the events button, so you can look at the individual events that happened that day. You can select which events are displayed, so we are currently showing ignition events and idling events. You've got driver login events, so if your vehicles are fitted with a driver ID, you'll see who's logging on. Harsh driving style events, again you can click here and see where these occurred. Input events, and these are system events. We've got the stats which I've shown you for all vehicles. Drivers, so you can see who's been driving that vehicle. So if more than one person was driving, you'd see how many journeys they've done, distance and duration. This button here shows you all the locations they went to for the date range, so this is just on one day. If I change that to last week, where you can see all the locations they went to, how long they spent there, etc. You can order it by number of visits, duration, you can see the location where they spent the most time. Go back to visits and click this button and you can see all the times they arrived, departed and how long they spent there. Anything with a red symbol means it's a known location, one that's been set up on your system. Anything without is just a location and you can zoom in and see where that is. So that's looking at vehicles from the Analyze page. You can also look at it from drivers. So you get exactly the same information, but instead of seeing who's been driving those vehicles, it's which vehicles they've been driving. So if they've driven more than one vehicle, you'd get that listed down here. You can also look at locations, so we can select a location or location group. We'll run a few calculations and tell you all the times and vehicles that have been to this location during the date range. It tells you the time they arrived, the time they departed, and how long they spent there. This concludes the video training for Smart Asset Manager's Analyse page.